Everybody take that deep breath in, hold it, pull up on your anus, pull up on your ass, and take that deep breath in and hold it for about nice good 10 seconds. Do that about 6 times and your ass always wake up. It's all in understanding. Last night during the God Hour show, we got into that aspects of intuition versus instinct. And understanding that instinct also requires identity. That means your instincts or comforts, remember that compartmentalization or being stuck within the polarization. Your instincts require identities. Your instinct requires identity. Your identities come at a cost. So, you know that if I don't understand Grand Rising, if I don't understand my value, I don't know my value, I don't know my emotional value, or don't know my emotional accounts, then who's going to co-sign for my identity that I need in that space? Who's going to co-sign? We're changing the thought, changing perception. Who's going to co-sign for me being what I want to be? Being the father, being the mother, being the sister, being the cousin, being the best friend. Who's going to co-sign on that for me? Who's going to co-sign for it? Who's going to co-sign for it? It's your trauma. The traumatic events. The things that you're not dealing with. Remember, we're getting deeper and deeper. And on tomorrow, we're going to be getting into that war zone concept. So we're going to get deeper into understanding, getting deeper into some of these aspects we're getting throughout the week. But it's your cosign is your trauma. Think about every conversation that you have. And when you have the conversation, it can sound very, very normal because it became normal to us when we're telling our story, when we're getting to know people, we usually lead with our trauma. And we always usually lead and based on the instinct or that pattern to stay within a certain space, we usually always tell the story based on no accountability or no responsibility. We'll talk about, and this is all changing the perception, understanding that your instinct is based on that behavioral pattern. Rather than you coming into your intuition, and your intuition is going to always challenge you to step outside of your comfort zone. Your intuition always challenges you to step outside of your comfort zone. So if you're making a decision process and then you keep going back and forth with yourself, you're battling between your intuition, your instincts, and your intuition. Who's the cosigner? Your trauma. Your cosigner is the trauma. Your cosigner, your trauma keeps your ego, me keeping you within comfort, for you not stepping outside of that zone with yourself, that zone. So you keep getting stuck in that twilight zone. You keep wondering why you keep ending up in the same aspects in your life. You wondering why you keep having the same conversations over and over and over again, and there's not a sense of growth inside of the conversation. I'd rather have a 15-minute conversation and the understanding and unlocking keys within myself than have a 4-hour conversation that is, I'm only talking about the things that I'm avoiding and not really being able to catch into it. If you can see it, therefore you can react to it, therefore you are on that frequency. You have to find your corresponding frequency. That's why you can't seem to leave that space. You can't seem to leave your hill loop. When we understand that, when we start getting that understanding, because you're going to break away from trying to weigh everything out and make a logical source for it. I remember for myself, I started to make a logical source for it. Like I remember when I would be smoking, drinking, things of that nature, never to no extreme. But it was like, I would always say to myself, like, I don't understand how they can do that or smoke every day or drink every day or do all these things every day. It didn't matter how much they were doing it. It was the factor that I had to find to the reason that I was doing it. Because a lot of times, the more your mental is out of balance, the more your emotional balance, which you don't know the value to, has to overcompensate. The more that you are becoming emotionally using for the aspect of that emotional attachment into a space, that means somebody needs to co-sign for that value. That means that trauma, that event you haven't dealt with, it's co-signing for that value. So the longer that you stay into that space, I don't care if you paying 2 months ahead. I don't care if you paying the minimum balance. Most people pay the minimum balance just to keep themselves above water. Most people are, I paid a couple months ahead. It doesn't matter. That interest rate is only going to get higher in the aspect that your trauma is the cosigner. That unseen aspect is the cosigner. That urge is the cosigner. That pattern that you're suppressing yourself through is the cosigner. So until I understand the basis of myself, I'm really not doing anything. One of the things that I've noticed with a lot of people when it comes to them doing their work is when you're shifting into this internal aspect, I'm going to tell you now, fuck the credit. Do the work. I'm not thinking about what I'm acquiring anymore. Because that's naturally going to come into position. That's a byproduct of me becoming. So now that I'm thinking about what I'm becoming, as long as I stay within that space, now I can really look at myself. Because a lot of times when I went into a lot of spaces, I realized that the reason that it was high school at my job, it was high school like at my job, or preschool daycare at my job, is because it was giving me the examples of like, why am I being bothered by this? I would have never acted like this. At a point in time, you did. At a point in time, you got lost in the loop of your inner child. Your inner child shows up before anything based on attention. Your cosigner keeps signing because your child, think about it like this. You keep trying to build things in your life, and it's similar to when you were 15 or 16, or if you knew somebody that was in there 15 and 16, or when you were a little bit younger and you had to go get that work permit in order for you to get some things out of that space so you can be seen you got something beside it. That's what your trauma is. As long as you stay in that childlike mind or the imprint and not in the childlike innocence, the innocences of the challenges of there's no challenge, of intuition, unconscious thought, you're always going to need someone to co-sign for you. That's when it comes in this aspect of needing validation. You need someone to validate for you. And then when you're looking at the space around us, think about it like this. When you look around the space around you, one of the things I had to really do internally when I started building my platform, building the platform and doing the teaching and counseling, is that a lot of people have a lot of followers and people around them for the fear of the conversation with themselves. A lot of people are actually speaking from a fear-based narrative with themselves or from their trauma being the cosigner. And damn, like, oh shit. Because if I go look, I'm like, everything had an emotional cue to it. Everything had an emotional reaction to it. I didn't get any higher. I didn't have a sense of getting higher, something to reflect on, something to look at. But it was nice for me to look at because it gave me my identity. A lot of us get stuck in those identities, and those identities are what you're using as your intuition. Your identity that you created is what you're using as your intuition. So you never tap into that. You never tap into the stepping out of your comfort zone. So you're always depending on your old instincts. Think about the conversations that you're having with yourself. Think about that initial conversation you have with yourself first 15 minutes of the day. I'd rather take 15 minutes to myself in the darkness because that's going to help me grow into my authenticity. That's going to help me check. I know what I need to do. You know what you need to do. What's stopping you from doing it? If you have a question, it's time to ask the question. If you have that, man, I really need to, but what about this and what about this? I can tell you 3 things. When you do your internal work, when you're doing your internal work, your perception changes. Your perception changes about everything. What you see is no longer what you project into it through a wound. You start seeing it for what it really is. And then you start having a deeper understanding of a lot of shit that goes on around you. You stop looking at things based on, I can't believe that happened over there or that happened over there. And you just really start looking like, why can I see it? Why can I see them doing what they're doing? Maybe I am on that. Maybe I'm on that frequency somewhere. My frequency is vibrating at that rate. That's why I can see it and react to it. Remember, there's a difference between your seeing, your awareness. You're coming to a level of awareness to understand what you've seen. So now you can come into this state of tapping into your sight. That sight is always going to bring you to the high. That sight is always going to challenge you to bring yourself to that higher point of yourself, to see things from a higher point, to want to keep going higher. Always being stuck in what you're seeing, the result, the attribute, that's always going to leave you. I need someone to co-sign for this. I need validation for this. Fuck the credit, do the work. A lot of us still look at things around us in that space of, if I'm doing the work, that means everybody else can do the work. That's not how this works. That's not how your journey and your path works. That's not how your shift's gonna work. Your shift is based on the things that you need to deal with. Remember, all this week we've been getting into the aspects of, you've never competed with anyone else. You've never been in competition with anyone else. No one else outside of you has challenged, has been the competition to your worth and your value. It's always been you versus your trauma. It's always been them versus their traumas. Y'all just keep projecting shadows into the space and then living through the filters of the trauma. So your conversations are always, you take a 15-minute conversation that can be really impactful and change some things. Only take 15 minutes for most things to happen. And you'll trade out that 15-minute conversation for 4 hours of what? For 5 hours of what? For 6-8 hours of what? Because that's how we were put into that space, because we're thinking about the elongation of time. We're thinking about time. Time is your emotions. The more that you accept the more you accept that one time, that becomes that behavior. I.e., it feeds from an identity that you are maintaining. That's why you can see it. Because it's maintained based on the identity that you're trying to maintain. What are you if you're not the boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, sister, wife? What are you without those? That's what we're getting into when it talks about that internal work. What are you without that? Because until you understand what you are without that, you can't really understand what it is to be the creator or the alchemist. You ain't getting into that shadow aspect. You're always going to need that. This is why a lot of us always feel like we need that external anchor and put ourselves in that position of, ooh, if I do this first, then I do that over there, then I do this, then I can get back to me. All of that's you. If I now look at it and if I understand why I keep making this, or understand why I keep doing that, or understand why I keep doing this, then I can now understand me. Then I can see everything in my space will naturally change. Because seeing, come to that level of awareness, and then you're shifting into your sight. Being able to see things with the whole new perception. But you got to change that route. What your instincts are in. The first relationship, the first thing that you've ever done, a lot of it was based in survival. You're shifting your instincts from survival into that aspect of that love and that peace. You're raising that frequency. You're raising that vibration. So now when you're seeing things, you don't see it through the bias of, I don't know. You see it for what it is. You accept it for what it is. And when you accept it for what it is, now you can make that action of discernment. Your instincts are based in judgment. So if you find yourself placing judgment on a lot of things, it's because it's triggering those aspects of your instincts. Got to get them instincts in order, your standards in order. But when you're in that space of your intuition and it's challenging you, it's teaching you discernment. It's teaching you the true aspects of sacrifice. It's teaching you the true aspects of moving forward. It's teaching you those true aspects of yourself. But you have to make the step. Fuck the credit. Fuck the credit. Do the work. Forget the validation of others that are on the frequency that you're no longer going to be on. It's like walking outside, and because you got the car and you decked out and you jeweled up and you look real good, and you're only doing it for the validation, and the only ones that can see you are the only things that can validate you in the first place. They're on that frequency. That's why you can see them. So it's natural for them to, that's why I got those haters around me. They all hating on me and my shine. No. It's deeper than that. It's deeper for you in that. You seeing it that way? That means you're not aware of what the real pattern is. Why you keep falling into that space. There's a difference between you hustling to try to keep things in your life and vibrating at a frequency to where everything comes to you naturally. It's time to assess. It's time to learn those aspects. It's time to get into that mirror. It's time to address those broken images that you keep trying to cling to. It's time to allow the mirages of your false pride or those identities to subside. It's time for you to understand that he's him, she's her, and they're all you. They're all something to teach you. That's why you can see them. You can see dead people. It's time for you to step that game up. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be getting into the war zone. We're going to get into the aspects of getting more deeper into the aspects of instincts, your urges, the identity complex is based on creating through your instincts and stepping into the space where you don't need, it does you know what, I'm going to put it like this. It does you no good to have a gun, to have the sword, to have the book, if you're not understanding that's only an extension of you. So many times we get stuck in this war zone because we're not understanding that the war zone is only based on the mini battles or the internal conflicts that we're not dealing with inside of ourselves. It's time to it's time to step the fuck up. I desire you to be the best. I'm always going to desire you to be the best. I don't want you to feel good. I want you to be great. I want you to feel better. I want you to get better. I want you to feel great. Hit me in the inbox. Readings. Set up that consultation. Readings. Or you just want to you just need to have that conversation. You got some questions about some things. Hit me up in the inbox. Let's set up an appointment and we can have that conversation. That's what I'm here for. I am that vessel. Yes, playtime's over. I am that vessel that is here to help you and aid you in your work. I love you. We love us. Ashe.